So this song is played in open C tuning, and that's where you tune the E string down to C, then the A string to G, the D string to C, the G string stays the same, and the B string comes up to C, E string stays the same. And if you're playing it on a 12 string, both sets of strings go to that one note. He plays it with the capo on 4th fret, which puts it in open E. So if you tune it with the capo on, you're going to tune both of these strings to E, both of those strings to B, both of those strings to E, that string to B, these two strings to E, and those two high strings to G sharp. All right, that puts the song in the key of E, but when I refer to a fret or a string, it's as if the capo isn't on it, okay? So that's the 2nd fret, that's the 4th fret, and I'm going to call these strings as if it was just a normal guitar without the capo or the different tuning, just to make life easy. Okay, so it's in the key of E major. He's got really long nails that he uses to strum with his index finger on his right hand. But I'll show you how to play it as well with just normal nails. Near impossible to play at the same speed he does, but even if you play it at 75%, which is pretty doable and comfortable, still sounds pretty good. I've divided the tab up into sections, so let's get started on section A. Section A is just a freely played intro. I'm just playing it a bit slower. It's pretty difficult to play this exactly to the same timing he does because it's just all free and expressive. The first thing he plays is possibly one of the hardest sort of techniques because he's doing a flamenco type of strum with his right hand. So he's not just going like that. I mean, you can do that. I can't do the flamenco thing very well, but basically the technique is you have to strum using all your fingers, using your pinky first, then your ring finger, then your middle finger, then your index finger. You gotta do it fast. Now, the hard thing is it's not just that, you also come back up doing the reverse. So coming back up, starting with your pinky and ending with your index finger. With your left hand, you're just fretting the high string on the 3rd fret. So it's a flamenco stroke down, then up, and then down again. And it's just sort of that pattern. So you do it. You go down, then down, up, down. So you just have to, I would just say do it like that because it's really hard to get that upstroke smooth. I'm not doing it smooth at all, but down, up, down. Just practice that upstroke. Downstroke. Downstroke's easier. Down, down, up, down, up. Yeah, so don't let this hold you back. There's no point getting held up on that. Although he does use it one other time later on, which we'll point out. Just play the rest. You see on the tab which fingers to use for all those notes. Pretty straightforward. just notice he does switch to the middle finger, even though he's using the ring finger for the 4th fret for this lick. Now he switches to the middle finger. And then on the D string, that little lick at the end of the line is all hammer-ons and slides. Not even using the right hand, except for that first note on the D string. So it's okay. Bit of vibrato using the left hand. Again, the end of the second line, you go, and that's only using the right hand index finger for that first note in that little slide sequence. The rest is hammer-ons and pull-offs. Beginning of line 3, you use your right finger a little bit more. You slide down, pull off. Now you strike it again and again. You just sort of, this little lick here when you slide up to 5. I mean, you can just do this as much as you want. The beginning of line 4, that's a bit tricky. Just got to slow it down though. Use the fingerings provided. Line 5, you're doing this roll up on the 12th fret with a sort of alternating bass, as you can see in the tab. Okay, then down to 10. I've put on the tab how many times he does it, but you just got to go with feeling. Again, alternating bass at the 10th fret. At the end of 10, you slide down to 7 with an upstroke, then a downstroke on the 7th fret. And then you're a bit more of that alternating bass. And then you slide up to the 9th and 8th fret. Back down to 7. You kind of hit that low string at the same time as you slide down to 4. Okay? So you're in 5. Same thing, no alternating bass, but same sort of pattern here on 3 and 4. Then you got that series of hammer-ons and pull-offs. And then you slide up to 3 and 4, and then strike strings again with your right hand. Slide down and pull off. And then you do some more hammer-ons, but you don't do the pull-offs this time, you just go. And then you do a hammer-on and a pull-off. So just take that section slowly and play it freely, and you can play it kind of however you want, really. He'll never play that intro the same way twice. So this is section B. This is tapping. In reference to the tab, all the notes that are hit on the low E string, they're all done with the right hand index finger. You're going to be fretting 9. You're going to be fretting 5. You're going to be fretting 0, which means you're just pulling off 5 to 0. And then you're going to be fretting 7. So it could be a good idea just to practice that with your right hand. 4 beats with each one. So you have 2. It's pretty easy for the strings to buzz. That just means you're not pressing hard enough. So you really just got to like press down until the strings don't buzz. And you really got to land on it firmly. So that takes a bit of practice. And then all the other notes on the tab, on the other strings, they're all just hammer-offs and pull-ons. So first measure. You're sliding up from 2 to 4 at the very same time as you hit 9 on with the right hand. Then down to 5th fret with the right hand. And as you hit that 5th fret, that's when you pull off with your left hand. And the tab will indicate which fingers to use. Doesn't really matter, but the tab will show which ones he uses. So from the top, now to 5. So at the end of that second measure, you're going to be fretting the A string, okay, with your middle finger left hand, while you're still fretting 5th fret with your right hand. So you got to make sure that you're not muting that A string with this finger. It still has to be able to ring out for that little pull off. Okay. Then measure 3. You're starting with your middle finger on 2, pulling off that, and also pulling off your right finger from 5. From the top, measure 9. So measure 11. You've sort of got to pull off from the G string, and as you pull off from that G string, you got to catch the B string so that you kind of hit that. You hit that so it's an open note to begin the little pull-offs that come at the end of measure 11. So measure 11, we just got to do that bit pretty fast. that's measure 16. You gotta hit the 7th fret, and as you do that, slide up to 5 with your left hand. So that just takes a bit of practice. Okay. The line below it that says freely, you're still fretting at the 7th fret, and you just do a series of pull-offs from open to 2nd fret. And sliding up. Let's go from 16. And then you pull off to begin the next percussive bit. Let's play it one more time, 75% to the track. So section C is the percussion section. The trickiest thing is just the relationship between the drumming with the guitar and the hammer-ons and pull-offs. So even though the hammer-ons and pull-offs occur at different frets, changing the melody, they all happen at the exact same time. So if you can play the first 2 bars, that rhythm just repeats, and you can play the whole section. Play it really slowly, and then it's just a matter of changing where you do the hammer-ons and pull-offs. So we'll just go through the first 2 bars. Without using your left hand for now, let's just go over what the percussion is. So 1X on the tab means you just tap the strings like this. Okay, that's your kick drum, if this was a drum kit. Then 2 X's mean you tap the body just with your fingers, the fleshy part. And then 3 is you tap the body with your nails. That's the snare drum. So that always is on the 3rd beat, and you should look at the tab and see where the beats are. There's 4 beats in each measure. The drum pattern is so just try and do that without the left hand for now, and ingrain that into your right hand. Let's try tapping on each beat. And with that the 2 X's is just like a pre-tap to the snare. Let's add the left hand fingering, and again, it's all just hammer-ons and pull-offs, and you hold down the note until you see a 0, and that means that's when you pull off, okay? So let's break it up into little chunks. The first chunk, okay, let's do it again. So notice when you hit the snare, that's when you pull off to 0. And then as soon as you pull off and you hit, you hammer back on. And then the next little chunk is, okay, you hit it twice, open, hammer on, and then again twice open, hammer on. So from the top, and then snare again, pull off, hammer back on, and then hit twice again, still holding, ready for the next pull off. Okay, so it's a bit confusing, but just follow the tab exactly. Don't try and just like feel it if you haven't got down the exact hits yet. Or maybe you can. I couldn't do that. I couldn't play the exact same thing as he plays by just trying to feel it. You could probably play something else, but not how he plays it. It's just really difficult to come up with that naturally unless you're him, you're the creator who's doing it. So let's go real slow, just the first 2 bars on repeat. And again. Okay, notice you just change where you're doing those hammer-ons for the different measures. The only real difference with the percussion and the rhythm is you'll notice at the end of some of the bars you'll see a little yellow highlight. That's just to signify that it's a slightly different way to end that line. If anything, it's an easier way to end it because you're just leaving out a beat. So instead of going instead of those 2 at the end, you just go instead of 4 and 1, you're going 4 and 1. Okay? So instead of you go that's the only variation. And it doesn't even matter if you don't do that. It'll still sound good. There's a couple sections where he plays both the lower strings at the same time. So even though the left hand shape is slightly different, it's pretty much the same, okay? So this is bar 33, second line of the next page. And you just to begin measure 35, you just have to slide instead of hammer on. Instead of hammering on, you slide. So it's all right. Measure 37 here. Then down to 7. 45. Measure 47 is hard, but the rhythm's the same. You just got to get used to your fretting hand hitting different notes. And so on. At the very end of page 4, the last bar, the way he finishes it is he just does an open hit. So I'll go from measure 59. Okay, so section D is rhythmic tapping, and the hardest thing about this section is just doing that hammer on and pull off the whole time and not having your hand cramp up when you do it. You start out with a hit of the strings, open, and then as soon as you hit it, you do the hammer on and the pull off. Bring in the right hand tapping. And so on. You can follow the tab. It's good just to practice tapping each note separately. So just tap 7th fret for a while. 9th. 5th. When you get to the 4th line of the section, that's bars 14 to 18, exactly the same pattern, but you move your hammer on and pull-ups up to the 4th fret. So you go from 5 and 2. Okay, here's the new part. So that little transition you might want to practice separately. You can practice tapping your foot along to it. The section ends with a walk up where you hit the right hand on every beat. So you go. Okay, 5. If your left hand's just constantly doing this, so you have 5, 7, 9, 11, harmonic. And that's just you hit the 12th fret with your right hand, right finger. And then that takes you into the next section. Okay, so now we're on to section E, which I've called the verse. We're out of the percussive drumming type of stuff. Still to a beat, but it's the last sort of bit before we get into the fast, different rhythm. After this section, that's when it goes into like triplets, like. But for now, we're still in that sort of steady 4/4 time. The rhythm of this is sort of pretty syncopated, which means a lot of the notes are off the main beats. So you're just gonna have to look at the tab, tap your foot on all the beats. So measure 1 is. slow. Measure 2, you have a pretty fast little hammer on and pull off. So it's and you start that on the off beat. Okay, so if you look at the tab, you got on beat, off beat, on beat, off beat, and that's on beat. The hammer on the G string is the third beat of the measure. So that little trill has to go between the second beat and the third beat. So it's third measure, we keep our finger on that G string, 4th fret, and we hammer on with our middle finger on the low string. Bars 3 and 4 both end with a bit of a strum. So again, with those strums, he's using his index finger and he's using the nail like that. I'm not really doing that because I don't have long nails like him, so I'm sort of just I'm making like a pick shape with my thumb and my middle finger, and I'm sort of stroking up with my thumb and stroking down with my middle fingernail. Actually, sometimes I use the index finger pick type of thing, or the middle finger. It really doesn't matter. Whatever's comfortable for you. With these little ones, I think I kind of get away with the index finger actually. After that little strum, you got a little low string and then open B string again. And for that one, I'm back to my middle finger for that open note, as you can see in the tab. Bar 5. Look at which notes are on the off beats and what are on the on beats. So for example, at the end of bar 6, that slide from 2 to 4, you slide into 4, and that's on the last beat of that measure. Bar 7 and 8 are the same as the bar above it, only you don't have your ring finger on that G string. Okay, I'll play measure 9 real slow, and I'll loop the little hammer-on lick that goes on the 4th and the 5th frets, okay? That's kind of hard to play exactly the same way he does because there's a lot of syncopation there. A lot of the notes come offbeats in bar 10, they slide down from 7 to 2, and again slide into the 2 for the on beat. So go through it slowly, pay attention to the tab, and tap your foot on the beats. So the end of the third line, measure 11 and measure 12, they're the same as the one above pretty much. There's just no up stroke after that fourth beat. Then we're on to measure 13. Play it slowly. So again, a lot of fast little trills that fall in between beats. Like in measure 13, you have so measure 14, measure 16 ends. So you got to slide up from 5 to 9. Okay, and you're sliding up with both these fingers and strings. Okay, so played slow, measure 17 is. So just before the last beat of measure 17, you're adding your index finger to the 7th fret. So this is your chord. And if you look at the top of the line, you'll see the strumming pattern that kicks in. So you kind of move from picking this bar, and by the end of it, on that 4th beat, you're strumming. So play it slow again. So bar 18 is just continuing to strum that chord. Okay, that's 18, that's the rhythm. Your hand is always just going down, up. So you can't really go wrong, even if you just went down, up, and hit the strings every time. It won't have the same feeling, but that is essentially the mechanics. To get the same feeling, it's just a matter of leaving out certain upstrokes or downstrokes. So if you played all of them at the same time, it would be leave a few out. The only way to do that is just to follow the tab exactly. Maybe tap your foot if it helps you to see which ones you leave out. So the first one you leave out is when you tap your foot on that 2nd beat of measure 18. So it's okay. See how I left it out on that 2nd beat? He continues to use that pattern through the rest of this section. Bar 19, we are sliding down that same little chord shape from 9 to 7. And then we're adding again index finger to the 5th fret. So this is our chord. Previous chord was this one, now we're down here. And same thing, you're picking those notes as you can see on the tab. By the end of the bar, you're strumming, and you're using the same pattern as you did in measures 17 and 18. You're going from this shape to taking off your index finger and putting it on the 5th fret of the G string. So it's like that, and then also after that, you're taking that off again, and you're going ring finger 7th fret B string. So it's like that last little open, with all the strings open at the end of bar 20. That's not really something that you're deliberately playing, open strings. That's basically because you're taking your fingers off the 7th fret and you're going to move them down to the 5th fret for the next bar. One more time, real slow, bar 20. Okay. Okay, that's the chord. And you start it by just strumming it down. So you strum down with like your index finger. Then the next note is sort of an up stroke with your middle finger. And you're hitting the high open string. And you're also now holding down the 4th fret with your index finger there. And those are the same note. Okay, same note, one's fretted, one's open. So that's why it doesn't matter what string you kind of hit on your way back up, you can just hit both of them. And you get that kind of rich sound. So this little kind of riff that descends the 5th and 4th frets down all the strings, he repeats this a lot. So we'll just go through it once. And you'll notice again, he kind of descends into strumming again. Okay? So you just take that one slow. Again, the open string, I think the hardest thing for that section is just a lot of the notes where they fall on the on and off beats, okay? So rather than just playing them, as fast as you can spit them out in the right order, like take it slow and really hit them on the right beats, and then it'll sound better. Even if you have to play it slower, it'll sound better if it's played on the right beats than just random, well, not random, you're still playing the right sequence of hammer-ons and pull-offs, but they're not on the right rhythm. And if they're not on the right rhythm, it doesn't sound right. So get that foot tapping. So for on measure 30, that open B string, that's on the on beat, which is sort of weird that would be on the on beat, but that's just where it happens to fall. And it makes sense in the context of the whole line. Then we're into measures 23. So we're on this shape, and we start strumming. Kind of a different strumming pattern, this one. It's a bit more free form. So I've notated where he strums relative to every beat. So it's like... I'll just do measure 23, played slowly. Now measures 23 and 24. So measures 24. The Those open strings at the end of measure 24 adjust the transition so you can get to the next shape, which is at the 9th fret. So measure 25, play it slow. Then measure 26, we have the flamenco strum again. So you go down all the strings, starting with your pinky and ending with your index finger. Then you come back up with your pinky, then back down, starting with pinky. Just like we did at the beginning. So it's down, up, down. But you can also just go like that if you want. So we're at the 9th fret. I'll do 25 and 26. And then we're on to measures 27 and 28. Same thing, but we're down at 7 now. So after the flamenco strum, just have a look at the tab because you kind of back off the strums a bit and you're hitting them on the offbeats. So from measure 27. That line's a bit tricky, especially the flamenco strum. I'm pretty terrible at it because it's not something I ever practice or play. If you do that instead, it would just sound like... That's probably what I would do rather than try the flamenco strum without practicing it enough and having it sound sloppy. Then we're into 29 and we have that same riff again. So he repeats that riff multiple times and then, you know, lets it really ring out at the end of that section. And then he pulls off and then he gets into the next section. Okay, section F is the fast picking section. I made a pretty long walkthrough of this section, so I will include the link to that below if you want the really extended walkthrough. We're in a different rhythm now, we're in triplets. So even though there's 4 beats to every measure or every bar, the rhythm now is 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Okay, so I will tap along on all the beats and you really just have to pay attention to where the hammer-ons and the pull-offs and all the things fall and really just slow it down and get it right. So I'll put on each bar on like a slow loop and then I'll move on to the next bar. Once you get the first bar, the rhythm of all the other bars will come pretty easily. Measure 1. Even slower. Measure 2. Again. again. Once more. Okay. Hear that beat. That third beat comes on 3 and a 4. 3 and a 4. 3 and a 4. Bars 1 and 2. Measure 3. Very similar to measure 1. Measure 4. Okay, it starts out similar to measure 2, then it just changes a bit. Measure 5. Bars 5 and 6. So let's do 5 again slowly, just 5 on repeat. Okay, keep doing that one until you get that one down. Now measure 6. Measure 7 on slow loop. Measure 8, slow loop. Let's do that whole line again, all the way through slow. Bars 9 and 10. 11 and 12. They're very similar to previous measures, to measures 3 and 4, 13 and 14. Now, all those bass notes, like if you watched him a few different times, he'd play those differently. The basic riffs will be the same, but those bass notes, sometimes he hits them, sometimes he doesn't, okay? I sometimes skip him if I'm trying to play fast in those measures, so don't stress too much about those. Play it again slowly, measures 13 and 14. (15 and 16). Now that's sort of a weird one because he skips a beat at the end there and goes straight into the next measure, into measure 17 at the end of measure 16, okay? That riff from measure 15. I've put which fingers I think he sort of uses and which makes sense. You can see that after that little hammer on, first hammer on, next hammer on, there's an open D string. That could easily be an open A string. So it could be that would make sense in terms of how he approaches these patterns, but I think technically he is actually hitting the D string. So even though he's like alternating index middle finger, so it makes sense for him to hit the A string, he actually alternates those two fingers and hits the D string. Real slow. Okay, so measure 17. He's ended with his middle finger on the 5th fret, and so he keeps it there, and he uses his index finger on the 4th fret. Now in measure 17, that little 5 is in parentheses because you could pick that instead. That would actually make more sense for the picking pattern. Bars at 19 and 20. Even just those first two bass notes, just, you know, you're on 1 and 2. Okay, 1 and Okay, measure 21, just like the measure above it. Bars 23 to 24. So measure 25, your middle finger is still on that 5th fret from the previous measure. And again, using your index finger on 4. He doesn't even hit that 5th fret on the A string, okay? But he's holding it, just, you know, so it rings out sympathetically. So measure 26, same thing. He switches up, he inverts those sort of fingers so that you're like that now. And even though he doesn't pluck that string, he's holding it down because, you know, your thumb is probably going to catch it accidentally. 27 to 28. Starts again with those like bass notes on the 1 and again right before the second beat. Measure 29, you've still got your middle finger on the 4th fret from the previous one, and you want the 4th finger again on that low string, so he uses the index. All right, now measures 31. That pattern we're going to keep repeating that pattern. We're just going to change the little chord shape that you make. So that's the chord shape, as you can see in the tab. Those are the fingers, 1 and 3, and you go I'm repeating that once more. Okay, slide. Again. Slide up. Then 35 to 36. So that's a pretty simple lick. You're hitting the string on every beat, so that makes it easy. Your first finger is pretty much holding down all those strings from the G string onwards. Okay, 37, 38. Bit of a different variation, but same notes. 38. You keep that ring finger on the 9th fret. Okay, so you leave that on from the previous measure. You hammer on the lower E string 9th fret. And then slide down. And you hit it on that 3rd beat, and then you slide down. So it's 39 to 40. (41 to 42). Measure 41, same sort of lick, but instead of this, we go. Okay, so we just sort of move that lick to a higher string. Now to get that smooth between measure 41 and 42, you have to leave your finger on the 9th fret, and then you hit an open string there, and that keeps ringing out as you go into measure 42. So it's like open, okay, 43 to 44. We are taking a little walk up the neck, and we're sliding from 5th fret where we've ended. So we're sliding up to 10, and that's our chord shape. And you just follow the tab, walk these chords down, 47 to 48. Midway through bar 50, we switch to between picking. And strumming. And again, strumming, he uses the nail of the index finger to hit the strings. The fleshy part of my finger catches the strings. So what I do is I use the nails of my middle finger and my thumb, and I create like a pick shape. You know, you can do it any way you want. If you're doing it this way, with the creating a pick with these sort of fingers, I think the key is sort of to keep it loose. So sometimes when you're strumming, they're not even touching, okay? You're just making sure that the middle finger hits on the way down and the thumb nail strokes it on the way back up. But they don't have to be touched and locked tightly. Although that kind of works too, but you can end up catching the nail and snagging it sometimes, whereas if it's loose, the fingers just sort of brush off and they don't catch. So I've put in exactly where you start strumming, but it's up to you where you want to kind of kick that in. It's just, the strumming up and down takes place over those notes. So you could go. So it could be good to just practice, either strumming or picking the same pattern and keeping the same feel, okay? And this strumming pattern is the one he uses for the rest of the song. So spend a lot of time getting this right here before you go on, because you got to get it naturally ingrained in you, and then it's just a matter of, your left hand will change, but this strumming pattern is always the same. That string's sort of muted, because if it rang out, it's a bit muddy. It's a bit cleaner if you mute that one. And let's practice the strumming pattern. So, the strokes are constant with your right hand, and you hit the strings on every one of them except the second upstroke. So instead of you miss that second, the very second strum. So you skip that, and then you put an emphasis on the third beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that just means you hit that strum a little harder. So just put that bar on a loop and try to get that strumming pattern down. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay. Now let's play that strumming. Let's start off slow, and then let's play it faster and faster, okay? So I mean, he's playing it insanely fast, but you can still play it slowly, like at 75%, and have it sound pretty good. And you just make sure you have the same emphasis, okay? Same sort of rhythm. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, every now and then, you know, he might actually hit every stroke. So get used to skipping it though, because that is sort of that helps really exaggerate the feel of it, as opposed to. I think the other thing about the strumming pattern is you should just make sure it's correct by you're on a downstroke for beats 1 and 3, and you're on an upstroke for beats 2 and 4. So I'm not going to explain that rhythm anymore from now on. I'm just going to talk about the shapes he uses with his left hand. And I've notated on which beats he actually switches those shapes. But it's roughly, you know, it's pretty cleanly on, you know, at the beginning of each measure or every half measure. All right, now, having said that, let's blitz through these chord shapes. I'm not going to write out for every strum what notes you're hitting, so I'm just using these lines to show that you're hitting the same notes as before, and then I'm getting rid of the lines because it's just, there's no point. If you see blank spaces, that just means you're strumming what has been previously notated. So let's go, 51. '52. Next line, measure 53. All right, so in measure 53, we're splitting the bar. We're changing the fingering exactly halfway. And then measure 54, we are doing this descending walk down pattern with our left hand. But again, the same rhythm, but we're changing the left hand every beat. Okay, I'll repeat that. We're on measure 54. Okay, measure 55. We're sliding into that note with your index finger. Okay, we're sliding into there. You know, that's like a root note in the scale we're playing. If this is open C, even though it's open E because of the capo, you're still thinking in C, and so that note, you're just thinking, that's my root note, that's C. So that's sort of the same as if you're playing nothing. By playing that, you're just doubling up a root note. So let's do 55. '57, we're sliding up. Now, this is a bit tricky. You're doing these, the basic fingering is, that's the riff of 57 and measures 58. You're going, but you're keeping that strumming the whole time. So the best way to think of it is just changing your left hand on every beat here. So for the third beat of measure 57, instead of just hitting the 9, you're hitting 7, but you're hitting onto 9. Right? So in the tab, like, just think that 9 is kind of coming down then, but you're also sort of hitting 7 onto 9. So it's like, so that bit is pretty tricky. Just slow it right down and just concentrate on those changes on the right beats. Maybe do it without strumming first. So you could go. Measures 59 and 60. Just that bass, we've done that before. 61, we're changing it up midway through the bar again. Then 62, same walk down as we've done before. On every bar we change our fingering. And then we're on measure 63 and on measure 64. We're basically just strumming open, and then we're walking up on one string and we're walking up to the 11th note. So we're going like open, 4, slide up to 5, slide up to 7, slide up to 9, slide up to 11, and we hit 11, and then that's sort of it. So the exact timing of when he slides up, I've put on the tab, so you're just gonna have to use the beats and your feet as a guide. But it doesn't really matter. You just have to land up here by the end of, measure 66, the end of the section. And that's the end of that section. But yeah, good luck with that. I think it's pretty much all downhill from here because we just keep repeating those picking patterns and those strumming patterns for the rest of the song. Okay, in section G, we move into a picking pattern, which is used for the rest of the song. Measure 1 of section G. So we're up at the 9th fret. Okay, so that's the chord shape. And again, I'm muting the D string with my middle finger. So if it does come time to strum it, the only strings that are ringing out is that one on the 9th fret. That's muted. That's open. That's 9th fret, G string. That's open, and that one's open. So the pattern is played slowly. I'll just play it on loop, and I'll tap my foot on every beat, and we're still in the triplet form. Okay. Then open note is on the beat again. Then next note is off beat. The next note on beat. So just have a look at what notes fall on the beats and what are on the off beats, and make sure that lines up. See that high string open note? That's on it. That's on the last beat. Okay, so once you've got that down pretty comfortable, we'll just move through all the shapes very quickly. So we've got 2 bars of that up at 9. After that 9, you move down to 7, and that's on bar 3. You still hit the 9th fret at the beginning of that bar, and then you move down to 7, as opposed to already being down to 7. Which sounds fine, but technically he's hitting it then sliding. Okay, doesn't really matter though, but just a little thing to point out. So then we're down at 7, 2 bars of 7. 5. Okay, so then we went from 5 down to 2 bars of 2, and then you back up at 9, and we're on measure 9 there. And we move into a strumming there. So at the very end of that measure, after we've moved up to 9, you're changing the chord and you're putting your index finger on 7 there. And you hit that on sort of an upstroke at the very end of that bar. And then you strum, same pattern as before. Okay, so if you want to skip that second strum up, you can, or you can hit every strum. I think he's sort of hitting every strum there. So it's like, but you could also go. Then after that, switches back to picking down at 7. And again, moves into strumming. This time he puts his index finger on the 5th fret of the B string. And that's the chord. And he strums that in measure 12. The end of measure 12, there's an open string because you're moving your fingers to get to this position at the 5th fret. That's measure 13. And we're back at picking now, and it's picking the same pattern as we were picking before. And yeah, you're sort of walking down that descending line as we had before, earlier in the song. Okay, it's a common theme in the song. But we're just picking the same pattern over the top of that descending line. But we move into strumming, as you can see on measure 17. Halfway through, we're picking it. Measure 19. That's measure 20. And then we go into some open picking for measure 21. Slightly different pattern, same sort of rhythm, just a bit more simple. It's just. And then after 2 measures of that, we're sliding up. And then you slide into 12 for the first beat of measure 23. And so now we're going to be picking this pattern for a while as we change this little chord shape. So it's the same rhythm as what that previous picking pattern was, only we're hitting the high string twice instead of once. Okay, so it's very similar. Your fingers will find it pretty similar. So we get to go 4 bars of up at 12. Do another bar of 12, but you slide into it down from the 9th fret. So you sort of slide down and back up again. Okay, and then we're on the next line, Then slide up again to 8 and 9 for measure 29. Again, sliding from 7, and you land on that 9 as you hit the beat. Down to 7. Down to 5. Down to 3 and 4. 3 measures of that, and then down in 1 and 2. Open. Back on the open for 2 measures. Next line, measure 39. Going back to the original picking pattern of this section. Okay, so now we're on measure 47. For measure 51, you've got to quickly add your index finger on the 4th fret. So we're coming from 9. Okay, so we've added that note. So you do 2 bars with that shape, and then for measure 53, we're back to open, but you're taking your index finger, which is on the 4th fret, and you're sliding onto 5. And that sets us up to be able to hammer on to 7 for measure 54 at the end of that line. Okay, so you got keep that finger on 7, but add the bass note on 7. Measure 56. Then at the end, you're moving back up to 9 with the G string. Back down to 5 at the end of that line. We're sliding into the 5, but we're using our ring finger instead of our index finger as we did before. We slide that up to 7 for measure 63. So then we're on 7 again for the next page, measure 64. Up to 9. Down to 5. And we launch into strumming again in that measure, in measure 70. A little bit of picking, and then halfway through, we jump into strumming. So it's like... measure 71, we're sliding into 5 with our first finger, and the strumming pattern continues. Next measure, use your 3rd finger on 7th fret. Okay. This is where it gets a bit ambiguous as to when you change. Essentially, it's, you know, a bar of being on 5, a bar of being on 7, and then the next bar is you got the 7th fret and the 9th fret for this chord. But you sort of pre-move up to this chord during the previous measure. Okay, so I've notated where that happens, but it doesn't really matter where you do it. You just sort of got to go by feel for this part. Essentially, you're thinking one measure for each shape. So let's play those measures in a row slowly. Let's go from measure 73. So you got 2 measures there, and then you have a measure this shape. You're doubling up on the 9th fret on the two bass strings. Okay, so you got 1 measure of that. Then the next shape, you're moving your index finger to the 7th fret, keeping your middle finger on 9. Okay, then after that, you go into this familiar shape, and you got 2 bars of that. And then we're back on just the 5th fret with your index finger on the A string for measure 79. Again, 7. And again, you're moving up from 7 to 9th to get ready for the next measure where you're up at this shape. Then you got 2 measures of that shape. Then we're back up at the shape, doubling the 9. '85, we're back on this shape. Play those open strings because you're moving your fingers and you're setting up the next run. So measure 87 to 88 is a bit tricky. All I'm putting on the tab is what note you're holding down. So first you're just holding down 2. And then you're sliding up to 4, exactly halfway through the measure. Okay. And then after 4, you're sliding up to 5 for the next measure, then up to 7, then up to 9, but you kind of change and use your ring finger. So you go, okay. So you're on 8, up to 9, and you're about to launch into this shape. So just have a look at when you move your finger at which beat, and just use your foot as a guide of when you're moving your finger up. Okay, so it's so again, we're sort of leading up to our next shape. And we keep our 3rd finger on that 9. And the next shape, we bring our index finger in for a partial bar chord. So this finger is essentially holding down the E string, A string, and the D string. Okay. But the G string, the B string, and the E string, they should all be open. Sorry, I've got some rattle on my guitar here. So they should all be open. And then you strum that chord. Again. And you're moving up to the next shape. Same chord shape, but you move it up to the 11th and the 9th fret. And you do that at the very end of that measure. And then you get a whole another measure of that shape. Measures 89 to 92 slowly. Come off to 0 at the very end of that few bars of open as you move your fingers down to this chord. Same shape. So you're here, then you went up there, now you're down here. And you've got 2 measures of this. Measure 95. Same sort of ascending riff as before, only now we're using 2 fingers. So let's go without the strumming. I'll do the 2 bars here in a row. Okay. Now with strumming. So just take that bit slowly. Then we're into measure 97. And we're up at this shape here. So we've used these 2 fingers for these chords. Then we add the finger again on a partial bar. And then we strum that for a bar. And another bar. And again, we take it off and play some open strums while we get our fingers back here. Back to this familiar shape. So you strum that for 1 measure. Then again, index finger on 4. So those are pretty straightforward. We've seen that before. That for 1 measure, that for another measure, for another measure, that for 1. Okay, then we're on 104 here. Now for the last bar, that's the chord shape. So we've gone from there to there, and then you add your pinky on the 7th fret, B string, and you do that for 1 bar. All right, and then into the next section, which begins on an open strum. Okay, section H. Without the strumming, the basic riff is so 12, 10, then keep your finger on the 10th fret there, but bring your middle finger onto 12, then you hit both. The riff is that you slide down just with your middle finger. but that note is still ringing out. So you slide down, and then you slide down again. So I've put where he changes the fingers on the tab, so it's just going to be a matter of tapping with your foot again and changing them on the right beats. They all happen on a beat, pretty much. So let's go through measures 1 to 4 slowly. Then we're on measure 5, and that's the same pretty much as the measure directly above it. Measure 6 goes. So halfway through measure 6, you use your third finger and you go up to 12. Half a bar of that. Okay, then we do this descending line, and without strumming, the next 2 bars are going to sound like this. With strumming. Faster. Then we're on measure 9, and that's the same as the first line in this section, so play it slowly. Okay, so I played measure 13 and 14 there as well. Pretty similar as we've already played. Then we get into another descending lick starting on the 12th fret, just like we did in measures 7 and 8. But this time, it goes a lot faster. It's pretty difficult. I probably didn't play it very smoothly either. But I'll play measures 15 to the end of this section. Without strumming, slowly, so you can have a feel for what the left hand is doing. So it's okay. Let's go with strumming. And this is really difficult, this section. The only way to really nail the slide downs like he does is exactly change exactly on those beats and use your foot as a guide. So you're dividing up the measures either into half measures, and then you're dividing them up into quarters. And every beat, your left hand is doing a slide down, okay? So let's start from measure 15. Maybe let's isolate measure 17 just by itself, and also measure 18, the last 2 measures of the section, just by themselves. Let's isolate measures 17 and 18, the last 2 measures of the section. Again. Faster. Maybe isolate the very last measure, just practice that bit as well. Again. The last two all together now. I would practice each bar individually and get the fingering and the timing of each bar together and then combine them. Okay, section I is we're back to tapping with the right hand. This whole section is pretty much just a couple of different riffs with your left hand and then, you know, a different pattern with your right hand hitting the bass notes. So all we'll really do is go through one bar to get the correct pattern, and then you can follow the tab as to what you do with your right hand. The right hand's just doing basic things like this, you know. 7, 9, 5, 5, 7, 9, 5. And then at the end it goes. So you just walk up. So you walk up 5, 7, 9, 11, then you hit the harmonic at 12. Okay, so let's go on to the riff that he plays underneath it. It's all hammer-ons and pull-offs. You don't use your right hand for it. And played really slow with tapping on each beat. It goes like this. So let's go through where each note lies in relation to a beat. So the first beat is a pull off from 3, which means you hammer on the beat and then you pull off just after the beat. The next beat, you're at the 2nd fret on the B string. So you've pulled off from 3, you've hammered on 4, and you've pulled off to 2. Okay? And that's where the next beat is. So it's okay. Then you do a hammer on and pull off on 4, G string. And that's when you pull off, that's where the 3rd beat goes. So from the top. Then after that, you hammer on the B string, 2nd fret, and pull off again. And when you pull off from that G string just before it, from 4, you can kind of catch the B string. So that when you hammer on the 2nd fret on the B string, it's a bit louder. So then you pull off from 2, and you hammer back on the G string at 4. And that lands on the 4th beat. Let's play that up till there slowly. And then it ends with a pull-off. And that pull-off on the G string is the last thing just before you play it again. So let's put that riff on a loop, and don't worry about your right hand for now. Go really slow. So you just have to keep playing that until it's just ingrained in your hand, and then you'll be able to concentrate on what your right hand is doing. Because when you play it, it feels like you need to concentrate more on your right hand than your left hand. So your left hand should just be kind of on autopilot, and your right hand is sort of thinking about, you know, the harmony, the chord progression, and landing that finger, you know, perfectly so that you don't buzz, which can be difficult. So just keep practicing that hammer-on pull-off, and make sure you're tapping. And really emphasize the pull-offs. This will make your left hand pretty sore, and you know, it could cramp up for a while, but you just got to do it. Now, once you have that down, you just got to practice bringing in your right hand, bring it in, and just keep it on the 7th fret, and get used to doing that on every bar. And then once you can bring your right hand in, you can, you can play any pattern you want. In different versions of this song, like live versions, he plays a lot of different things. Like he goes down to 2. And he changes up the order. The only other thing in this section is there is a point at measures 25 to 28, the second last line on this page, where he changes up the little riff. And it's the same principle of pull-offs and hammer-ons as the original riff, but this alternate riff takes place on the 4th and 5th frets. So it goes like... and then you go back to the original riff. So that's the only real difference. So we finish section I by climbing up. And then you kind of count the same number of beats after that harmonic. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's this little lick. So it's every beat he plucks with his right hand. So then the first beat he plucks from 4, slide up to 5 on the G string. And then you hit an open B string after. And then on the second beat, you hit an open D string, but you hammer on the 4th fret G string. He might have meant to hit an open G string in order to hammer onto that string, but either way he hits an open D. So you could just go an open G though if you want. It would be like... also works. So the way he plays it is... Okay, and you finish off that measure with these 2 little slides and then open notes. So altogether it's... the rest of that line are those open notes. Measure 5, very similar to that previous riff, but just a little different. I'll play measure 5 and 6. Measure 5 should be pretty easy if you can play measure 2. It's just like you slide down at the end of that one on the last beat. And pull off into the open G string. So it's and measure 6 slowly. Just make sure you're hitting the right notes on all the beats. So open, first beat, then slide with the second beat, then open hammer on the third beat, then open hammer on the last beat on the D string. Okay, so just take it beat by beat. And put it together. Measure 5 and 6 again slowly. Then open again. Then measures 9 and 10. Similar kind of riff, but just a little bit different. Just kind of repeat that for measure 9. Then measure 10 is pretty much the same. You just end with 2 slides. And again, you just play that as fast as you can. Then the rest of that line, open again. All together at medium pace. If you play along too. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're into the home stretch here. Measures 13 to 16. And from here on in, again, we're always going to play the same fingering pattern. It's just going to be different chords with your left hand. The pattern's very similar to ones we've already come across. Let's try it with this first chord shape. Okay. And the pattern is... Okay. I think it's the same pattern as we've come across before. So you got downbeat, open, upbeat, open, downbeat 2, upbeat 4, downbeat open, upbeat 2, and open, and then downbeat high E string, and then upbeat 4. So. And so the rest of this section is just variations and of that pattern. And the chord shapes he'll use are, he'll go like that, 2 and 4, with open bass, like we just did. Then he'll add the middle finger on the 4th fret of the low string. So that's your chord. he does that for 3 bars, and then he takes off the ring finger from that G string. Okay? So that's the other chord, and then he goes all fingers off except the index finger on 2. Okay, so let's do those 2 lines of this picking pattern. Okay, so measures 21 to 24, same shapes, same pattern. Next line, last line of that page. We've got that shape again for 1 bar. Ring finger off, another bar. Open, except for the 2, for 2 more bars. And then this is a slight little variation he throws in. At the end of that bar, you slide from 4 into 5. For the next bar. And then you slide back down at the end of measure 29. So you go back to this shape again. So. Then you start the cycle again by adding that low 4th fret note. So keep going through that. The next line, same shapes, just keep going. Let's skip. You do it for quite a long time. Let's go from measure 61. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then measure 65 is the last time we pick in the whole song. And then measure 66, you start strumming. Okay? And pretty much the same strumming pattern as we've had before. And we just do it with these chords. Very end of that measure, you release he technically releases the 2nd fret finger a bit early, and then as we jump onto measure 67, we've got a little open strum before he plants down this chord shape. So he plants that chord shape on 2, and then measure 68, he's going to slide that shape. So you're on 2 and 4, and he slides it up to 7 and 9 for half a measure, then down to 5 and 7, and then that's just for a quarter measure, and then he takes off his fingers to 0 in order to get back for the next chord. 67 and 68 all together. Okay, and then we're on measure 69. This is a new chord. You've got your pinky on the A string, 4th fret, ring finger on the 4th fret for the low string, and then you've got your index finger on 2. It's a nice minor chord, and you do 1 bar of that. Same pattern. Then for the next measure, you slide your pinky from the 4 up to 5. And then you play the same rhythm up there, and halfway through the measure, you come back down. So it's like And then measure 71 is the same as the measure above it, and we're sliding back up to 5 and 7. Okay, just have a look at when that slide happens, on which beat. It happens on the last beat of the measure. Okay, then we're up there for the measure 72. Then he takes off the fingers halfway through. And he's back down at the chord shape for measures 73 and 74. And then measure 75. Again, same as above. Measure directly above it. But this time he slides up to the 5th fret and the 4th fret. So without strumming, the next two measures go like this. With strumming. Each chord for one measure, but he preempts it and he kind of leads up into it before the beginning of the measure. Okay, so if you look on the tab, he'll go from 4 and 2 up to 5 on the last beat of that measure, and then he's already there for the next measure. So let's go from 79, and we'll play 79 and 80 slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he's going to slide up to 5 and 7 for the next measure. And from there he's going to slide up from there to 7 and 9 for the next measure. And the next measure after that, he's going up to 10 and 12. But during that, he switches up the fingering because we're going to need slightly different fingering soon. So from 7 and 9, you got 1 and 3. He's going to move up to 10 and 12, but you're going to switch fingers to the first and the second finger. And eventually, he's going to slide up to 12 and 14. And that's when you bring in that ring finger to hit the 15th fret. Okay, and that's the final one that sort of ends on. That's sort of the final chord you build and end on. So let's go through that little ascent from measure 79. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can just sort of think of one measure each, but technically he does kind of lead in before the next one. And then measures 85 and 89 are just on this high, what do we got? High chord for a whole line for 4 measures. And again, the strumming pattern, you can either go just every strum, hit the strings, or you skip that second strum back up. Let's play that whole ascension one more time from measure 79. 1, 2, 3, 4. measures of that. And then we're on to the final strumming pattern. And played slow is. So exactly the same strumming pattern as we've done. But you bring in your left hand and you mute all the strings. Technically, he brings in this right after the second beat. So the way I like to think of it is do the strumming pattern, and after that upstroke, that's when you bring in the mute. So it's like, okay, that's roughly where he brings it in. It's slightly later or forward in each time, but that's a good way to mentally think of when to bring in your left hand. Right after the second beat. Down, down, up, mute. Down, down, up, mute. And then the next measure, same rhythm, but instead of muting it, he's gonna finger this chord, and he's using the second finger, and he's holding down the top three strings, or the top three sets of strings. Okay, E, A, and D string, and the rest are open. That's open G string, B, and E. And he's gonna bring that in halfway through the measure on the third beat. Okay, so it'd be like. So let's play those first two bars together. So the measure after is, the same muting measure. Then the next measure is the same, but instead of 5, we go to 7. Okay? So let's play that whole line again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then we're on the last line of the whole song now. The first measure is the same as the one above it with the mute. Then we've got open and 5 again. And the next measure, we go straight into the one where we go to 7. Okay, so those three measures would be. Last measure, he just puts his finger on the B string at 5, and he does that for 3 beats for pretty much the whole measure, and then the very end, his last upstroke is on a 4. So and that's it. So let's do those last two lines again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it.